A simple truth. It really is this simple. Either you believe David Crowley is innocent or you believe he is guilty. If you believe David Crowley is guilty, you are wrong. If you believe David Crowley is innocent, you are right. It really is that simple. A United States Army veteran is dead. His wife and his 5-year-old daughter are dead. A thorough investigation would only conclude with authorities admitting they lacked evidence to support their accusations. If authorities were to admit the case remains unsolved, they would also have to admit that the public may still be in danger. I am not able to solve this case. My interest is in forcing authorities to admit David Crowley is innocent. The reason they refuse to talk about this case is not because they are confident of David's guilt. They lack confidence in their allegations. Their department wishes to move on, but they are only lying to themselves. They must know the simple truth, and they need to publicly admit this. Their credibility depends on it now. The unspoken truth is that David is innocent until proven guilty. Why are authorities running from this simple truth? How long do they think they can run for? You cannot run from God. You cannot run from your nightmares. And you cannot run from the facts. Why would anyone want to? What could possibly motivate someone to try? If you cannot prove David Crowley guilty, then he remains innocent. It's as simple as that. So the resistance we face is disgusting. If David was guilty, the evidence would be right in our faces. If David was guilty, resistance to our questions would not exist. If David was guilty, facts would be evident. There are no facts to prove David guilty. There are only facts which prove David innocent. Hence the resistance to getting justice for David Crowley and family. Who cares? Do the people who closed this case and decided to not speak about it ever again really care? Do the friends who accused David Crowley of being guilty days after his body was found really care? Perhaps they only care about spreading the accusations of David's guilt instead of researching the facts of this case. They don't seem to care about the facts which prove David innocent. Truth is a simple thing. Justice does not die. Facts prove David is innocent. It's very interesting that there is a request for known DNA samples for victims, but not for a suspect. That makes me wonder if at this point they are also treating David as a victim. We know very soon that's going to change. He will be a suspect. It's pointed out that no one has been charged in this case. Page 84 is specifically referring to David Crowley, and it is quoted as saying, "Only the back portion of his skull remained attached to his spine. Rope/bracelets on his left wrist. His bare left foot was covered by a blue blanket, and his right bare foot partially exposed. A rip was observed on the left thigh of his pants. A portion of Kamel's sweater was draped over David's lower right leg. His right sleeve was pushed up, and a tattoo was visible on his right forearm. For Kamel, her left arm was under her body extended towards the right. Her right arm extended over to her left. Both of her hands appeared to be missing. Only a portion of her skull appeared to be attached to her spine. They also noted a rip in the rear right leg, and they state that she was lying on top of a blue blanket. For Rania, she was lying on her left side with her left hand extended out to her front. Her right arm was missing. She had a blue top with white polka dots that was pulled up around her neck, exposing her torso, and she was barefoot. Page 85, personnel from the Hennepin Medical Examiner's Office entered the scene at approximately midnight on 1/18/2015. A hole was observed in the remaining portion of the skull attached to David's spine. 2 possible holes were observed in the remaining portion of Kamel's skull. A hole was observed behind Ranya's left ear. Additional tattoos of David's left forearm and tattoos on Kamel's back were also found, still page 85. The bodies were removed from the scene at approximately 1:30 a.m. on January 18, 2015. Several fragments of apparent bone and tufts of apparent hair were observed in the area rug in the living room. They found 6 cartridge cases, item 2, item 3, item 9, item 30, item 36, and item 37. They found 1 unspent round, a live round, it's item 7, 3 spent bullets, item 42, item 43, and item 44. They also have item 31, which is a bullet fragment. Regarding the bloody footprints, looking at page 86, they state that a chemical was used to enhance any possible ridge detail present within the prints. The prints were documented with photographs prior to and after the application of the enhancement chemical, page 86. So here is just one example of them taking photos before and after things are moved, before and after chemicals are sprayed and used. It's interesting, on page 87, they're already talking about item 57, where they say a hole was observed in the living room ceiling near the front entry. Characteristics of the hole and its surrounding area indicate that a projectile was traveling generally west to east as it entered the ceiling and exited in the attic. A bullet, item 57, was collected from the attic in the vicinity of the hole. It's also important to note that there were 2 ways to get into that attic. You can get in there from the master bedroom, but you can also get to the attic from the garage. There's another entry in the garage. Sticking with the basement bullet, there's actually 5 holes here. It begins with a hole in the area rug in the living room. The second hole is in the living room floor that goes through that wood. The third hole would be above the ceiling tile in the basement. The fourth hole is the removable ceiling tile. And the 5th hole is where the bullet is retrieved from inside the wall near this hole on the south wall. Going back to the description of David, looking at page 101 now, we see that there is a rip in the navy blue shirt, quote, ripped on bottom. There is a rip near the left leg, possibly, if I'm reading this right. The left foot is covered by the blue blanket, right bare foot partially exposed. Part of Kamel's sweater was draped over David's leg, arms fully extended to his sides, right hand missing with possible tissue attached. Still on page 101. From neck of the shirt, visible vertebrae and back portion of skull attached. Piece of skull within the back part of his skull was still there. The right forearm is purple and black. Left hand is purple with leathery textured appearance. There's a tattoo on the right forearm. David's stomach is exposed, light skin with purple discoloration. His left leg through the rib, light skin with yellow discoloration. Right foot, purple discoloration with leathery appearance. Right forearm cooled to the touch, stiff. Stiffness in stomach. Skin slippage, mummification, possible animal activity, and skeletalization, page 102. For Kamel, there is a rip in the right sweatpant. Brown sweater lifted partially up. Black undershirt, gray state shirt. We know that's a gray state t-shirt she was wearing. Tan undergarment exposed, still page 102. Lying on her stomach with her left arm under the body extended towards the right. Right arm extended over to her left. Just the skull was observed through the neck hole of the shirt, I'm guessing. Not sure. Neither hand visible. Right leg rip. Yellow, purple, green skin exposed on lower back and right leg through rip. A bead of liquid on the lower back and right thigh. Temperature and stiffness not checked. Skeletalization. Possible animal activity. Possible bloating. Blankets above head area of Kamel, page 104. for Rania, page 102 to 103. She was barefoot, gray sweatpants halfway down the buttocks, all the way up the front. Shirt was around her neck, entire torso exposed on the left side, left arm extended out in front, right leg crooked and knee upward, entire right arm missing, first stated as her left arm. Red, purple, yellow discoloration at the torso and left arm. Purple discoloration on both feet. Skin slippage, marbling on the torso, mummification of fingers and toes, detached hair, possible animal activity. Taking a few steps back to page 103 through 104, and some of this will be found on page 106 and 107 as well. The cartridge cases. Item 2 was found in the corner of the carpet. Item 3 was another cartridge case on the east side of the living room near the stool behind the recliner. Item 9 was found in the living room. Item 30 near the south wall to the left of David. Item 36, another bullet case to the left of David. Item 37 was found on the floor by the couch. Those are the 6 casings found here. Item 2, Item 3, Item 9, Item 30, Item 36, and Item 37. 6 cases. They should be looking for 6 bullets, but they're not. They find 4, and that's it. They find 4 bullets and leave the house. So item 42, 43, and 44 are spent cartridges that are found in the living room carpet with hair on. Item 45 is the bullet that is found in the basement that is tied to the hole labeled as F. Item 45 is the bullet from the basement that is tied to the hole labeled F. So here you have 4 bullets here. That's it. And they're happy with that. Now there is another fragment. There is item 31, which is a fragment, a bullet fragment, that is found in the living room carpet near the south wall to the left of David, page 104. Then you have item 7, which is a cartridge found in the living room, never used. Did this jam? Did the gun jam and that bullet had to be taken out? Why is this bullet, why is there one live round, one unspent round found in the same area as Kamel? In the same area as where these 3 bodies are. Okay, if you look at this, if you were to look at 42, 43, 44, and 45, okay, we know that those are bullets found, right? Item 31, you could try to tie that to one of the other bullets. They still leave the house with 6 cartridge cases and only 4 bullets. And there's 2 other bullets in the house that they won't find till 2 days later and 1 month later. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. A black Springfield XD-40 handgun, item 1A, was found on the living room floor, several inches from David's left hand, according to Detective Tommy Booth. The presence of blood was found on the grip, item A1-1, the slide, item A1-2, the trigger, item A1-3, and the muzzle, item A1-4 of the gun. Ridge detail blood was found on the magazine, item 1B, and labeled as item 1B-1. 2 cartridges were removed from the magazine and labeled as item 1B1 and item 1B2. Item 1C was a live round found in the chamber of the handgun. So here we have 3 live rounds found in the gun. Hairs and fibers were found on the gun in the magazine, and they were labeled as item 1A-5 and item 1B-2. Okay, now there are several blood mixtures found on the gun, specifically on the trigger, item 1A-3, and the magazine, item 1B-1. DNA results show blood of 2 or more individuals on the trigger, with one of those individuals being David Crowley. The blood did not match Kamel, but Rania could not be excluded as a possible contributor. That's in BCA Reports and Documents, page 310 of 488. David's DNA profile matches the blood on the magazine, which also had a blood mixture of 2 or more people. Kamel and Rania could not be excluded as possible contributors. Detective Brian Bone reported that the crime scene team found a total of 6 empty spent cartridges. The crime scene team also found 3 bullet fragments in the carpet. Bone wrote that due to the lighting in the house and not wanting to disturb any evidence, we suspended a detailed search of the house until the BCA crime scene team finished processing the scene. According to Detective Bone, the BCA CTS processed the scene in detail. After the scene was processed, Bone continued, we were able to move the rug that the bodies were found on. Now this will be the same rug that 3 days later on January 20th, item 53, which is a bullet that'll be tied to Rania, item 53 rolls out of this same carpet. So they didn't find item 53, but they did find a hole in the floor, but not in the ceiling. 2 big misses, huge misses, right in front of their faces. Okay, based on the firearms report completed on May 22nd, 2015, the gun, item 1A, fired 6 cartridge casings and 6 bullets. The cartridge casings are labeled as item 2, 3, 9, 30, 36, and 37. The bullets are labeled as items 42, 43, 44, 45, 53, and 57. Now they did find an unspent bullet that was recovered. This is item 7, but it was not examined either. Even though it was found where these bodies were, could have had DNA as much as some of the shells did, but nothing. No, we're good. So a single source DNA profile matching Kamel was found on 3 of the 6 spent bullets, item 42, item 43, and item 44. This is interesting because autopsy reports state Kamel was shot twice. So how is it that the single source DNA of 3 bullets matched Kamel? Because so much of her head was missing, is it possible she was actually shot 3 times like many people have brought up and keep bringing up? Looking at this, I can understand why they keep bringing it up. It's a big question here. Okay, item 45 is the bullet that was shot into the living room floor, leaving bullet fragments on the hardwood floor, and then it lodged itself into the south wall of the basement. According to Joe Cooksley's report, chemical testings of the area around the hole failed to detect the presence of lead. Holes were observed in both the rug area, Cooksley continued, and the wood floor underneath this rug. Chemical testing of the hole in the wood floor also failed to detect the presence of lead. It's BCA report number 2, page 10 of 11. Now, once the processing of the crime scene was completed, authorities left the house with 4 bullets instead of 6. They returned on 2 separate occasions to recover a bullet that rolls out of the living room carpet, item 53, on January 20th, and a bullet found in the attic, item 57, on February 18th. The bullet known as item 53 also contains a mixture of 2 or more individuals, with the major DNA profile matching Rania. Interestingly, David Timothy Crowley and Kamel Rasul Crowley are excluded from being contributors to the mixture. Based on those results, authorities should have been looking for another DNA profile. Unlike other results, it is not stated that 99% of the general population can be excluded from contributing to this bullet. A second DNA profile was found on this bullet, a bullet that had the major DNA profile matching Rania. Who is the other person? This is another question that members have continually brought up, and they're right to do so. At approximately 1300 hours on 1/20/2015, reported Detective Bone, Detective McKnight was contacted by the company cleaning up the Crowley residence at the request of David's father. The cleanup crew personnel notified Detective McKnight that they had discovered a bullet at the residence. They relayed to Detective McKnight that while picking up the rug from the main living room area, a bullet had come out of the carpet and fallen to the floor. When authorities are notified about a bullet hole in the living room ceiling, they again returned to the Crowley residence on February 18th. Characteristics of the hole, Joe Cooksley wrote in his report, and its surrounding area indicate that a projectile was traveling generally west to east as it entered the ceiling and exited in the attic. It's BCA Lab Report number 2 on page 8. After examining the bullet hole in the ceiling, authorities find another bullet, item 57, in the attic above the living room, near the front door. Blood is not found on this bullet, but the DNA profile does match David Crowley. The DNA profile does not match Kamel and Rania. Authorities appear to have a hard time connecting item 57 to the gun. In an attempt to make a connection, authorities use item 31, which is a bullet fragment. According to the firearms report, item 57 against item 31 showed the presence of matching features. This means that item 1 fired item 31. I'm not sure how that necessarily connects item 57 to the gun. This is one of the most confusing things that I've read in this whole case. Item 1D is listed as a bore patch from item 1. Item 1E is listed as test-fired specimens from item 1. Latent print results are dated July 31st, 2015. 2 of the 3 latent prints suitable for comparison were found on the gun and the magazine. LP1A-1 is a latent palm print on the gun. According to this report, no known palm prints for David Timothy Crowley were submitted or found in the BCA files for comparison to the palm print on the gun. LP1B-2 is a latent fingerprint found on the magazine. However, this too could not be tied to David Crowley due to the limited quality and quantity of information in the latent print. No ties. No ties. Very interesting stuff. Is it clear that the gun was removed from the living room floor by the time Joe Cooksley and the crew entered the house? Remember, Joe Cooksley, in his report, he doesn't talk about the gun. So who saw the gun and which way was it facing? Very important. It's very important for me to have the actual quotes and for people to be quoted. So this book will kind of read very text-like, very textbook, I guess we should say. And that's all right too. That's the whole point of it. The book is not for entertainment. It's not an entertaining topic. The book is for research purposes. It's just to help people who are doing research on David Crowley and the questions surrounding the allegations against him. David Crowley accused of a double murder-suicide, murdering his wife and his child and then killing himself inside of their home, writing Allahu Akbar in his wife's blood, apparently. Though there's really no clear way for anyone to tell who actually wrote. We know it was Kamel's blood. The blood on the wall was tested. That's Kamel's blood. There's no doubt about that. The questions are whose hand wrote it and how do police prove that? And it's simply not here. It's not in any of the documents that we have. Not in any of the documents that I have, definitely. So that was another odd thing. And there were more odd things, and there's been a lot of interesting stuff. It's not just about what was tested. It's more interesting to me what was not tested. All of the different things that were not tested. So I go through those, try to label them as items, and really try to take all of the data that we have and put it into one book, one place that people can just begin their research. This is not meant to end anybody's research. This is just meant to be the tip of the iceberg, because that's what this really is. Even with all of the data that we have, all of these documents, there's still obviously a lot more. And the question is, if police have it, it would be mentioned here. We know what they have, and it's nothing. It really is. It's just by the fact it's a process of elimination. That's really it. Because they couldn't find any evidence, not that they looked, but because they couldn't find any evidence that anybody else was involved, they just proved David Crowley is guilty. That is supposed to prove David Crowley is guilty. What did they do to look outside to think that maybe this was a homicide? Maybe these 3 people were all killed. How far did they go with that investigation? Now, they can claim that they kept going on and on for the whole year until the case was closed. They spent about a year working on this case. And they can claim that they were always open to it. But the fact is that the second Apple Valley Police Department press release specifically stated that they were treating this as a murder-suicide. That was January 18th. It's like 10 or 20 minutes before David's autopsy has even started. And the theory is already that David Crowley is guilty of a murder-suicide. Nothing in the house is found that would conclusively show you that David Crowley is guilty. Yet things are left in certain areas, staged in certain places. And those are the roads, those are the paths that we've been following, definitely. But there is one clear path here. What really happened? And that's the path. That's the big path. That's the narrow path. Side roads will all lead there. And if they don't, well, then we'll have to go back and get back on track. But that is the goal, is to get to the truth. So this has to be clear. In the first Apple Valley Police Department press release, this was released at 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on January 17, 2015, 2.5 hours after the bodies were found. And they are treating this as suspicious deaths. Saturday, January 17, 2015, at approximately 12:56 p.m., Apple Valley police officers went to the residence on Ramsdale Drive on a report of dead bodies inside the house. The initial responding officers located 3 deceased persons inside the residence. The investigation into the matter is ongoing. Agents from Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are assisting Apple Valley Police Department detectives in the investigation. One day later, January 18th at 11:40 a.m. Central Standard Time, here is where they start accusing David. On Saturday, January 17, 2015, at approximately 12:56 p.m., Apple Valley police officers went to a residence on Ramsdale Drive on a report that a person checking on the residence saw dead bodies inside. Responding officers found the bodies of 2 adults and 1 child deceased inside the residence, the result of an apparent murder-suicide. At this time, it is believed there is no threat to public safety. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office is working to positively identify the 3 deceased. Again, not positively identified until January 21st, but we're already accusing David of the crime. They haven't even done the autopsy on David yet, and they're already accusing him of this crime. David's autopsy will begin about 10 minutes later at 11:50 a.m., January 18th. Investigation into this matter is ongoing. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Dakota County Sheriff's Office are assisting the Apple Valley Police Department with the investigation. So now we have the Sheriff's Office also assisting. All right, now the third press release is January 19, 2015 at 12:45 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now this one gets a little more in-depth, pretty much the same thing. Responding officers found the bodies of 2 adults, 1 child deceased in the residence, the result of an apparent murder-suicide. Police located a firearm at the scene and have determined the cause of death to be gunshot wounds. This is an isolated incident and the public is not in danger. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner's Office is continuing its work to positively identify all of the deceased. No positive ID yet. Investigation into the matter is ongoing. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and the Dakota County Sheriff's Office are assisting Apple Valley Police with the investigation. So by the 5th press release, now we got names: David Crowley, 29, Kamel Crowley, 28, Rania Crowley, 5, all dead of gunshot wounds. Investigators found a handgun next to David's body. The Hennepin County Medical Examiner determined Kamel and Rania died of a homicide, while David Crowley died of suicide. So here it is. By January 23rd, we see what the Medical Examiner's Office has determined. Now we need to understand why they determined that. That's going to be our focus here today. They also say, while this remains an ongoing investigation, updated information is being made available about the incident. The 3 bodies were found in close proximity of each other in the front room of the residence. There were no signs of intrusion or struggle. There's also no sign that they found a bullet hole right above their heads, but we'll save that for later. Investigators have determined the last verified activity from the residence happened in late December. Investigators seized several personal electronic devices and computers from the residence. The Dakota County Electronic Crime Scene Task Force is completing forensic analysis of the devices. The analysis of these devices could provide important information about this incident, said Apple Valley Police Captain John Bermel, but that analysis will take time. The investigation into this matter is ongoing. The Minnesota BCA is still involved. Dakota County Sheriff's Office still involved, assisting with the Apple Valley Police Department. January 23rd, 2015 at 10 a.m. When you focus on the documents, you get some clear facts. You have clear questions, but clear facts. Sometimes those facts are just questions. They're interchangeable, apparently. All right, so let's go through this. The medical examiner examining the bodies. Okay, so the final diagnosis of the medical examiner's report stated Rania was shot in the right parietal scalp. The bullet went through her brain and exited the left side of her scalp. 3 gray-colored metal projectile fragments were found in her left temporal skull. The trajectory was described as leftward, downward, and backward. It looks like Rania was shot from behind on the right side of her head, next to the ear. The range at which she was shot could not be determined, but there was no suit or stippling, which would have indicated murder at close range. The final autopsy report, initially dated February 6, 2015, with signatures dated March 16, 2015, stated Rania was found partially decomposed with moderate decomposition. Livor, discoloration of the skin, and rigor mortis, stiffness of death, were absent. Even so, according to the external examination, early to moderate decomposition is evidenced by skin discoloration, marbling, blistering, slippage, and partial mummification of the face, left hand, and feet. Examiners also observed evidence of post-mortem animal scavenging. The evidence was the absence of the right arm. Possibly related to animal scavenging was the jagged and tattered skin and soft tissue defect where Rania's arm would have connected to her shoulder. According to this report, the 10x8 defect exposed the glenoid fossa and the lateral right 1st through 4th ribs. Also observed was a fracture in the 3rd rib and numerous short white hairs adherent to the pants. Kamel's autopsy began with Assistant Medical Examiner Mitchell Morey as the pathologist. Detectives Sean McKnight and Brian Bone observed the autopsy. Kamel was identified by dental radiographs and tattoos. Kamel weighed 85 pounds. Lividity, discoloration, and rigor, stiffness, were not recognized on her body. Body cavities contained small amounts of decomposition fluid. Kamel was shot twice, with both entrance wounds in the left posterior parietal region of the skull. The trajectories of the 2 bullets were listed as left to right and back to front. However, in the external examination, the trajectories for both bullets are listed as left to right and front to back. Large skull fragments are also mentioned. The scalp was absent according to the report. The missing portion of Kamel's head was most likely the right side of her skull. All that remained of her head were portions of the posterior skull, specifically most of the left occipital bone and portions of the adjacent left parietal bone. No brain tissue remained in the skull. Irregular bony and soft tissue margins were consistent with canine scavenging. According to the report, most of the head and the hands are missing. Many of the bones found were consistent with fragmented digit bones. The distal aspects terminate with absence of the hands. Bone fragments, wavy dark hair, and white cotton debris were all mentioned under the internal evidence section of the report. Amongst this bony material, the report continued, are 2 mandibles. One shows numerous restorations. In addition, there are 2 fragments of bone with 2 and 4 teeth. Multiple irregular bone fragments range from 1.2 to 8 centimeters in size. Regarding animal scavenging of Kamel's neck, the forensic pathologist wrote, "The anterior musculature, hyoid bone, and laryngeal cartilages are absent due to apparent animal scavenging. All that remained of the neck was the exposed and intact cervical vertebral column." There is extensive bloating, the report continued, skin and slippage, and discoloration of the body surfaces. Hair was found on Kamel's right sock and the anterior left leg. The left sleeve of Kamel's sweater was frayed. Decomposition fluid and apparent blood were both present on the sleeve. Underneath the sweater was a Gray State t-shirt soaked in decomposition fluid and blood. At 11:40 a.m. January 18, 2015, the Apple Valley Police Department released their second press release. This one states David Kamel and Rania Crowley died as a result of an apparent murder-suicide. This is interesting because David's autopsy hadn't begun yet, and the Hennepin Medical Examiner's Office was still working to positively identify the three deceased. David's autopsy began 10 minutes later at 11:50 a.m. The pathologist was Jessica Lilinski, who was once again assisted by Mitchell Murray. Detective Sean McKnight and Detective Brian Bone were both present during the autopsy. Due to the condition of David's head, the pathologist was unable to determine the entrance, pathway, and trajectory of the gunshot wound. They did determine the bullet exited through the left parietal bone and scalp. External beveling, external cone shape, and radiating linear fractures were visible on the left parietal bone. The posterior calvarium and overlying scalp were visible, as was posterior neck skin, soft tissue, and the cervical spine. The scalp had patchy, short brown hair. Skull bone fragments ranging from 1.5 to 14.5 centimeters are mentioned in the internal evidence section of this report. The skull bone fragments articulate well with each other and with the remaining calvarium of David's head. Separately, a non-articulating 8.5 centimeter maximum dimension skull bone fragment has a rounded defect along with one edge with apparent internal beveling. The bony skeleton, the report continued, apart from previously described skull injuries and artifact due to animal scavenging, is intact and normal. The gunshot wound was 2 by 1 centimeters and was a regular edge. The bullet was not recovered at that time. They would not find that bullet until a month later, only because they were notified about it. Examined separately from David's body at the time of the autopsy was a maxilla with well-preserved teeth. The report also claimed paleo was responsible for the absence of David's brain, the majority of his skull, neck skin, neck soft tissue, neck muscles, the hyoid bone, thyroid cartilage, the tongue, the larynx, the trachea, and the thyroid. The remaining bone fragments are irregular and of unidentifiable origin or consistent with phalanges. Regarding the missing right hand, the distal right forearm shows intact, smooth ends of the radius and ulna and irregularly contoured soft tissue, muscle, and skin. The left hand was mummified. In one crime scene image, the index finger of the left hand is pressing against the thumb. According to David's autopsy, dried drips of red brown, blood-like material are on the dorsal left hand between the thumb and first finger. Additionally, early to moderate decomposition is evidenced by skin discoloration, marbling, slippage, blistering, and mummification of the left hand and feet. David weighed 128 pounds and was identified by dental records and body tattoos. Medication and food were not found in his stomach. Now, I also wanted to take a few minutes to thank all of the many researchers out there, all of the people who have been helping us on the sidelines, out in public, in their spare time, praying for us, wishing us well thoughts, encouraging us. I thank all of these people who are seriously trying to get to the truth, regardless of your view, regardless of what you think happened, regardless of what you think about the people who are researching it. The main thing here that everyone needs to understand, and a lot of people do understand it, and a lot of people still act like they don't, but they do. There is no evidence that will conclusively prove that David Crowley is guilty. There was no reason to close this case and claim that David Crowley was guilty. In this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. David Crowley was never proven guilty. How did we get here? In the beginning, you had many people telling us there's nothing to see here. Pay no attention to the man behind that curtain. It doesn't exist. It's not there. Life is good. Enjoy your family. Enjoy life. Forget about this case. La la la. It's an illusion. It's gone. Puff puff pass, right? and it's gone within the blink of an eye. Real life doesn't work like that. And a case like this cannot work like that. When a child is involved, you have to take this seriously. When two young people are involved, these people were under 30 years old. These are babies. These are what I would call babies. They're very young people who were doing a lot of interesting things. These were bright people. These were not mentally ill people. These were people who had a lot of things going for them and might have had a lot of targets on their back. Those targets will be exposed, whatever it is. We are dealing with multiple things now. It's not just about who did this. It's not just about why they did this. Mr. Alam told Sidger's friend the one thing he doesn't understand is the why. We spoke with Russell. Russell says what we need to understand is the how. I want to understand it all. I can't have one without the other. Gotta have it all. Gotta have the full picture here. Now, regardless of what we might think about the Apple Valley Police and the mistakes that they made, and there were many mistakes, it's not all of them who made the mistakes. Unless we're talking about the bullet hole in the living room ceiling. They all made that one. Nobody saw it. That's clear. If there was a photo of it, or if they noticed it in the corner of one photo that they took on January 17th when they found the bodies, if there is a photo that shows that there was a bullet hole in that ceiling, that's even worse, right? But at least it was there. So a few steps are being taken right now to get that answer, to get that photo. Because the police are telling us the photo is there. If we don't ask for it, if we don't request it, if we don't demand it, if we hit stone walls, if we hit brick walls, if we don't demand that we see it, and we shouldn't have to, by the way, but if we don't, we're never going to get the answer. We're never going to get that clear answer. And it's going to be in limbo. And we can't have that with this case. There's already too many things that we're never going to know. We know that. But they never talk about the things that we are going to know, and the things that we do know right now. And the most important thing, the one thing that counts, what proves David Crowley guilty? They can't answer the question. The answer is not a logical answer. It is a logical thing to ask the question. If you do not get a logical answer, what do? Keep searching, keep digging. And I am encouraging everyone, keep searching, keep digging. What's different about this is we're doing a lot of this stuff public. Some might say that might hurt what we're doing. It might hurt the end result. I disagree. I think that's how confident we are in this, knowing that there is no proof that shows David Crowley is guilty. I'll give them everything. I'll let them know exactly what I'm doing. It's not just about who gets to know the truth. Who decides that? Who decides who gets to know what really happened and who doesn't? Who gets to tell us when to stop looking, when to shut up? Who has the right to stand in my way looking at this case? You don't. In this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you did. To me, you are innocent until proven guilty. Or until you confess. We don't have a confession here. We don't have a suicide note. We don't have any indication that there was a suicide note, even though early media reports led us to believe that there was, and there wasn't. On and on and on. The narrative is slowly fading away. It's slowly going back into the darkness where it belongs, because the darkness is not truth. This official story just does not stand up. And we'll get there. Thank you for listening. Until next time. Alright, and I'm happy to say that we are just about complete with this book. The book is just about done. The Gray Stage, written by Greg Fernandez Jr. This is all about the David Crowley case. I hope that this book will help many researchers, past, present, and future, with their search for the truth here. So as we take a little journey down my search for the truth, it has not changed, has not wavered. It's always been the exact same thing. What proves David Crowley guilty? So we're going to go ahead and read from the final chapter of my book here. Usually you would put something like this at the very start of the book, but I felt the book really needed to begin with the documents, with all of the facts that we know, all of the claims, what the DNA test showed. It had to start with all of that. So I saved my own views, my own thing for the very end. So this is just my view on this whole case here. The Gray Stage exists solely because of the official conclusion, as stated on page 92 of the Apple Valley Police Reports PDF. With the conclusion of the review of digital devices, Detective Brian Bone reported on October 7, 2015, there is no other information available for further investigation. Throughout this investigation, the AVPD has not discovered any information or evidence that shows anybody but David is the perpetrator of these crimes, including the killing of his wife, child, and himself. This book, The Gray Stage, is a direct response to the allegations against David Crowley. Due to the lack of evidence against David, I felt it necessary to write this book. One of the reasons I decided to write The Gray Stage was to help convince the Apple Valley Police Department to reopen case number 1500303. Either the Apple Valley Police Department should be forced to prove David Crowley guilty, or they should admit the case is unsolved. Because the official investigation failed to prove David Crowley guilty, I can only assume he is not. What other conclusion could I possibly reach under the current circumstances? Time and time again, we are asked to believe David is guilty simply because the official narrative declares it so. We wait and wait and wait for evidence of David's guilt, evidence that is never produced. Delay after delay after delay did not deter my efforts, or many other people's efforts, to find evidence of the allegations against David. During the official investigation, I waited patiently for a conclusion based on facts. I researched as much as I could, documenting comments and actions of those involved in this case. What I soon realized was what the official theory believers and myself had in common. None of us were able to prove David guilty. In fact, no human being on earth can prove David is guilty of a double murder-suicide. So why should we act like David has been proven guilty? The question of what proves David guilty leads to the answer that David is innocent and has been falsely accused of a high crime. In the United States of America, we are all innocent until proven guilty. At least that is the America I strive to live in and to help keep alive. I have yet to find anyone who can prove David guilty, starting and ending with the investigative bodies who created the official theory and subsequent conclusion. At the very latest, the official theory began with the Apple Valley Police Department's press release on January 18, 2015 at 11:40 a.m., which was 10 minutes before David's body was examined. Captain John Burmell was listed as a contact person in the press release, and the document claimed what happened at 1051 Ramsdale Drive was the result of an apparent murder-suicide. Once the official theory began, investigating officials may have found it unnecessary to look into any possible alternative theories. As the investigation progressed, it was clear authorities could not find a motive for David committing the alleged crime. Additionally, authorities failed to tie David to the 3 questionable writings inside the Crowley home: the blood writing on the living room wall, the digital note on the kitchen island laptop, and the written note on a notepad in the office bedroom. Now, requests for handwriting comparisons were deemed unnecessary, yet all 3 writings were allegedly linked to David? Based on what? David's blood was found on the trigger and the magazine, but not on any bullets recovered. Even worse, authorities left the crime scene with 6 bullet casings and 4 spent bullets. Apparently, not one single person inside the Crowley house on January 17th or January 18th saw the bullet hole in the living room ceiling, which led to the bullet in the attic. The same is true of the bullet that rolled out of the living room carpet on January 20th. Both of these 2 later found bullets show disturbing DNA results. The bullet that rolled out of the carpet on January 20th, item 53, revealed a DNA profile matching Ranya's blood, but there was a second DNA profile on this bullet, and it wasn't from David or Kamel. The bullet found a month later on February 18th, item 57, matched David's DNA, but blood was not present on the spent round. Authorities did not know about item 53 or item 57 because they were not looking for them. Authorities had no clue that the bullet existed until they were informed by non-investigative bodies. Then there are the missing body parts. David's right hand, both of Kamel's hands, and Ranya's entire right arm were reportedly missing. Most of the heads of David and Kamel were also missing. Paleo, the family dog, is credited with the missing body parts, and apparently Ranya's fractured rib. Yet there is no indication Paleo deserves credit since dog feces tests were never conducted as far as we know. One of the biggest blood stains in the living room was never tested for DNA. There was a large circular blood stain on the lower right corner of this recliner. The blood was swabbed and labeled as item 34. This item was never tested for DNA results. Plain and simple, this was a staged event. Some believe David staged the scene, while others believe the scene was staged by parties other than David Crowley. Either way, I believe this was a staged event. I believe David has been falsely accused, and unless authorities can prove the double murder-suicide theory, this case should be reopened, and the status should be changed from exceptionally cleared to unsolved. Thank you all very much. That is the final chapter of the book, The Gray Stage by Greg Fernandez, coming out very, very soon. The rough cut just finished, and I hope to have the final version out soon. Thank you all. God bless. Even though you may be killed resisting, the act of resistance on a metaphysical level has value. David Crowley completed a revised script of Gray State on June 2, 2013, and asked a select group of people to review the updated version of the story. On October 23, 2013, the rough cut of Gray State The Rise was finished and ready for review. Exporting the rough cut now, David Crowley wrote on Twitter, "So stoked." On December 9, 2013, Crowley added 6 months working on Gray State The Rise. It's finally taking its final form, but holy Moses, what a shit ton of work. David, Kamel, and Ranya Crowley moved into their new home in Apple Valley, Minnesota on December 13, 2013. On December 18th, David posted on Facebook that he had lost a crucial hard drive during the move to 1051 Ramsdale Drive. The only real loss after moving to a new house last weekend was a crucial hard drive for the Rise. I guess the next few weeks will be spent salvaging everything that was lost. The following day, he wrote, "File recovery sucks, but it's better than not having files to recover. This could take a few weeks." By December 27, 2013, the documentary film was getting back on track. Finally getting back on track with the Rise. She's been teaching me patience by making me work for the 660 missing clips that remain and crashing at least 6 times a day. The manuscript for Gray State was about to go through a serious revision on January 15, 2014. Some seclusion writing this weekend, David Crowley wrote on Facebook. For those of you who read the GS script, it's about to get gutted for the necessity of a clear, concise, entertaining, and effective film. For all the chewy details that are going to get cut, well, there's always the novel. 5 days later on January 20th, the story for Gray State had completely changed. After 2 years of trying to extract the Gray State story, I think I finally may have done it. The story has completely changed, is working beautifully, and the new outline was completed in only the last 3 days. With this new story, it will not be hard to attract funding. The following day, David Crowley explained he had rediscovered the ending to the Gray State story. It's a strange experience finally feeling genuine love for characters I've created. The most painful part of writing the conflict for these people who are precious to me is that I must now torture them, punish them, and drag them through the dirt to reveal their essence of form. Yesterday morning I rediscovered Gray State's ending, and the final feeling captured was of such gentle sadness I've been stuck in it ever since. On January 22nd, 2014, David was still settling into his new home. Spending today building 2 big fucking new desks to create a man cave mega desk, then relocating all of the Bullet Exchange inventory to my basement. On February 2nd, David explained the plot of the fictional film Gray State. Gray State, a wounded veteran leads the insurgency against a corrupt government after his city is put under martial law. The use of force, David Crowley posted on March 7, 2014, no matter the context, should be a shameful last resort, indicating an utter defeat of intelligent faculty. This is the difference between men and children, and also why our childlike society celebrates violence in its exercise of authority. The very next day, David wrote, "Sean Stone, yeah, that one, apparently wants a role in Gray State." 2 days later, on March 10, 2014, David was happily unsubscribing from liberty and conspiracy feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Too much of the backbiting derision they claim to oppose. See you guys. It's been fun. You'll still like Gray State, though. Then on March 11th, David asked the question, "You know what liberty feels like?" Unsubscribing from hundreds of Liberty or Death Fuck the NWO pages and Twitter account. This movie was steadily progressing on March 19th. Today, in place of thousands of post-it notes, David wrote on Facebook, pages of scribbles, and 30 feet of plot points, I have a 118-page script outline hybrid that may be only days away from a solid draft 1. The original Gray State story took 8 months of solid work. This story took less than 2 and is better in every way. On March 22nd, Kamel was reading the first draft of the new Gray State script, according to David's post. On May 15, 2014, David spent a very welcome morning laying the groundwork for another 6 films I've been having ideas for. It's nice to finally be free from Gray State. Boy howdy. On May 22nd, David Crowley's dream had finally come true. It just happened. I'm not sure how many details I can divulge at this point, but Gray State will be optioned in the next 2 weeks at a major budget and connected with A-list talent. We are connected with a producer who above all else wants to preserve the film's pro-liberty ideals. This is all we could have hoped for and more. Thank you all for being our strongest selling point. Let's make a movie. On June 30th, posting as the Gray State page on Facebook, David Crowley gave an update on the Gray State movie. The past month I've been meeting with some LA-based producers, crew, and other industry contacts, and together we are building the team that will combine our passions and talent and belief in Gray State to optimize its message and reach of its exposure. This has been a truly exhilarating experience. My attorney and I are reviewing the option contract this week, and once that sucker is signed, this whole Gray State thing is going to finally, irretrievably, and monstrously take off for the stratosphere. And in such a way that the message will be preserved, and perhaps even continue in sequels, TV series, and video games. Seriously, talk about taking over the mainstream. This has been my life's work for nearly 4 years, and it is extremely gratifying to be backed by such a raging horde of superfans. Thanks for all your patience, guys. See you at the premiere. September 30th, David Crowley spent some time on Facebook answering questions from his supporters. It seems like there are a lot of questions and expectations about this project. For the next 20 minutes or so, I will answer your questions directly. There are 2 very important posts from David Crowley that were either deleted or have been hidden from public view. One post was made on December 9, 2014, and the other was dated September 30th, 2014. The missing post from September included a question by a supporter as well as an answer by David Crowley posting as Gray State. In this post, David Crowley mentions his plans for rebuilding a trustworthy team. Asked what his biggest holdup was with the fictional movie, Crowley responded, "I'm doing this myself. I say we and team a lot, but when it comes to nuts and bolts work, writing and leveraging the product into securing Hollywood money, it's just me. I hope to change this by reinvigorating the process and rebuilding a trustworthy team." Now, we still do not know who removed or hid this post from the Gray State Facebook page or why. Hopefully this post will reappear one day. Responding to a question about when the documentary Gray State: The Rise was going to be released, David Crowley responded, "The Rise suffered a catastrophic hard loss earlier this year. I am working to get it back together, hopefully for a free online release. You guys deserve a little something. I really have to be careful though, because a mishandled doc release could absolutely sink production on the film or series. I'm treading carefully, making sure that everything works out for the best." September 30th was a very important day as David Crowley had big plans for 2015. Today's post represents the first visible beginnings of the Gray State resurrection. I can't get into too much too soon, but with the right amount of hard work, strategy, and miracle juice, the beginning of 2015 should see some amazing progress. Crowley also wrote about a new revamped website coming soon, and many of his last known conversations involved plans for the future of his projects. Over and over again on September 30th, 2014, David wrote about his vision for the Gray State franchise, a series which could be produced and released way faster than a film, has the potential to subvert the system. How can it not? Sorry guys, but Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, while entertaining, lack a real-world purpose. Gray State will not fail you. How could it? Creating the Gray State franchise was David Crowley's full-time job, and he was doing everything he could to ensure the success of this franchise. It'll either be a great success story, a spectacular, highly visible failure, but either way, I guess we all put in our best shot, right? I guess that could be said about where the country is headed too. The questions kept coming, and David Crowley answered as many questions as possible within those dedicated 20 minutes. Crowley was attempting to reach out directly to his supporters and doubters in order to address the criticism the project received for its multiple delays in production. Starting a Kickstarter campaign for future production costs is more evidence that David Crowley was actively planning for the future in September of 2014. We want to run a Kickstarter, but if we do, it'll be for a very specific purpose, like hiring a behind-the-scenes crew to document production, run live broadcasts, and give constant updates to the fans. I never wanted the fans to fund this. It's like making your kids pay for their own Christmas presents. David was still trying to get big budget funding for Gray State in September of 2014. I believe this shows David was not defeated by his earlier failures in Hollywood as some have claimed. His words seem like those of a rejuvenated artist who had a story to tell and who wasn't going to stop until his concept for Gray State became a reality. Hopefully the strength of this project as a whole and what it represents with the people will help me get a big budget without sacrificing my intent. But hey, if I can't, then I will take it back to low budget indie like the 2012 trailer. This too shows David Crowley had a plan B, just in case the big budget dreams came crashing down. New developments have enhanced the project's honesty and dedication to its origins, wrote Crowley. This is going to be brutal. Crowley also reminded people to stay tuned for updates. We will keep the entire production process as wide open as possible. In response to the comment that it's been 3 years since Gray State was first developed, Crowley responded, "No, it's been a lot longer and there are years to go." In a separate comment, Crowley confirmed his long-term plans. The film is ready to go, but it may take forever and then still fail at any point in production. A series might be immediately tangible, and instead of interfering with the film, set it up for success a year or two down the road. Big picture stuff. More evidence. Now he's planning for a series that will lead in to a film. More evidence of David Crowley planning for the future. Crowley's most challenging thing about the project was trailblazing this timeline. It's been either a very small team or just me alone working on this thing for years, trying to make it work. I do not just want this movie done so the fans can see it online. I want millions to get blindsided by it in theaters. Murder at 1051 Ramsdale Drive. What happened to David Crowley, his wife, and his daughter? If this was truly a double murder-suicide, why did investigators fail to prove David Crowley guilty? Where is the evidence David Crowley killed his wife and daughter? Where is the evidence David Crowley killed himself? Within 24 hours of finding the bodies of David Kamel and Rania Crowley, the Apple Valley Police Department were treating the incident as a double murder-suicide. Authorities cannot prove David wrote Allahu Akbar in his wife's blood on the living room wall. Authorities cannot prove David wrote I have loved you all with all of my heart on a laptop in the kitchen. Authorities cannot prove David wrote Open the Rise most recent version, Submit to Allah Now on a notepad in his office bedroom. Authorities cannot prove the dog trapped inside the house ate David's right hand, both of Kamel's hands, and their daughter's right arm, since dog feces tests were never done. Authorities did not know about a bullet that rolled out of a living room carpet until they were notified by the cleaning company 2 days after the bodies were found. That bullet would later be tied to Rania Crowley. Authorities did not see the bullet hole in the living room ceiling or the bullet in the attic above until they questioned David's friend a month after the bodies were found. Authorities did not find a motive to support their accusations against David Crowley. Authorities did not find David's blood on any of the bullets at the crime scene. Authorities do not know when David Kamel and Rania Crowley died. What we know for sure is that David Crowley has not been proven guilty.